Hey guys, I am about to do a podcast audit this morning, but I just wanted to take some time to get some tea with one of my favorite mugs, and then I'll sit down and I'll share with you things that I do when I do a podcast audit. And if you want to audit your own podcast, what you might want to include in yours, and how I can help you audit yours. So today I'm deciding between, I just had a little tea, but it was not quite enough for me. So I'm going to have some coffee. Normally I stay away from it, but today I think I'm going to have this mocha latte, which is actually really good. It's like donut shop. It's very sweet. It's already got everything that you need in it. So I don't have to add anything except whipped cream. And there's this one, Cafe Bustelo, which is really good. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the donut shop today. All right, so it is time for some whipped cream. I love to put a little whipped cream on top. Okay, a lot of whipped cream, not a little. And then we're gonna do some ground cinnamon. And that's perfect. Just the way I like it. I believe my coffee turned out really well, and I can't wait to start sipping on this while I talk to you about podcast audits. So first, we're going to talk about why podcast audits are important. If you run a podcast right now, you want to take some time every once in a while to run an audit on it and see how you're doing. I'm going to give you the reasons why podcast audits are important, and then I'll tell you my process for creating an audit. So if you're new to my channel, I'm Demetria, and I enjoy designing websites for service professionals, as well as helping women entrepreneurs to make your voice heard through the power of podcasting. So I don't limit myself to women only. I do serve service-based professionals. And so I am an equal gender opportunity business, but my specialty over the past 17 plus years has been working with women entrepreneurs. So that's where I have most of my experience. And I just love helping with web design, online marketing, having a web presence, including podcasting specifically. I'm going to be sharing a bit about my podcast power audit. So you can find this in the link that I'll leave below. And this audit allows you to receive a special service from me that will help you to improve the quality of your podcast tremendously. So I'm going to share with you a short paragraph that I have on my audit so you can see what my reasoning is for you to have an audit. And it says, giving your podcast a checkup, and known as a podcast audit, is like giving it a shot of espresso. It's all about making sure your show is in tip-top shape. You want to dive into your episodes and see if they're hitting the right vibes with your listeners. Are they hooked, or are they thinking about hitting the skip button? Plus, it's like putting on your detective hat for the tech stuff. Are your audio levels playing nicely, or is there some mysterious background hum stealing the spotlight? And let's not forget the numbers game. Who's tuning in, and where are they from? And when are they binging on your brilliance? A podcast audit is your secret weapon to tweak, tighten, and tailor your show for maximum awesomeness. And that's why you want to have a podcast audit. Now I'm going to give you some actual more detailed reasons for why a podcast audit is super helpful for you. If you are a small business, if you're an entrepreneur, and even if you are working for a larger company that has hired you to do an audit for them, for their podcast, these are some reasons you can tell them that podcast audits are important, or are an important part of their process in creating, managing, maintaining their podcast. And one of the first reasons is for content evaluation. You want to dig into the content of your podcast just to make sure that everything's tip-top shape. You want to make sure that your podcast theme and niche are aligned with the content that your podcast is creating every single week. So I'm going to be sharing a bit about my podcast power audit. So you can find this in the link that I'll leave below. And this audit allows you to receive a special service from me that will help you to improve the quality of your podcast tremendously. So I'm going to share with you a short paragraph that I have on my audit so you can see what my reasoning is for you to have an audit. And it says, giving your podcast a checkup, and known as a podcast audit, is like giving it a shot of espresso. It's all about making sure your show is in tip-top shape. You want to dive into your episodes and see if they're hitting the right vibes with your listeners. Are they hooked, or are they thinking about hitting the skip button? Plus, it's like putting on your detective hat for the tech stuff. Are your audio levels playing nicely, or is there some mysterious background hum stealing the spotlight? And let's not forget the numbers game. Who's tuning in and where are they from? And when are they binging on your billions? A podcast audit is your secret weapon to tweak, tighten, and tailor your show for maximum awesomeness. And that's why you want to have a podcast audit. Now I'm going to give you some actual more detailed reasons for why a podcast audit is super helpful for you. If you are a small business, if you're an entrepreneur, and even if you are working for a larger company that has hired you to do an audit for them, for their podcast, these are some reasons you can tell them that podcast audits are important, or are an important part of their process in creating, managing, maintaining their podcast. And one of the first reasons is for content evaluation. You want to dig into the content of your podcast just to make sure that everything's tip-top shape. You want to make sure that your podcast theme and niche are aligned with the content that your podcast is creating every single week. So if your content is not aligned with the niche and the topic that your podcast was created for, then that needs to be assessed as part of your content evaluation. Let's look at your content. Let's see, is your content lining up with your topic or your theme of the show? When people come to subscribe to your show and follow you, are they getting the content that they think they signed up for? So that's something to take into consideration. You also want to look at audience engagement. Are they responding to you? Are they listening? That's one of the key things, is listening to you. How often are they listening? How much are they downloading? How much are they pressing the play button? When? What time of the day are they listening to you? What's their engagement like? Are you receiving the return on investment with your call to actions? Are they actually following through on your CTAs? When you're asking them to download a free ebook, are they downloading that ebook? Are they subscribing to your newsletter? And how are you able to track that this is happening as a result of your CTA on your podcast? And so doing some A/B split testing can be helpful. There's a lot of things you can do within the realm of digital marketing to help you figure out what's happening with your podcast and what's going on in the day-to-day of your show. But you do want to take a close look at your audience engagement. Part of that engagement can be measured by your social media as well. There's a lot of different types of metrics you might want to use that are not specifically just your downloads and subscribers, but there's other metrics. So we'll talk about that in a moment, but your audience engagement is always going to be key to how you feel about continuing your show. You'll want to look at technical quality. That's one of the main things that I check for when I am assessing someone's podcast for an audit. I want to check their quality to make sure that the volume levels are just right and they're not peaking too high and causing your ears to bleed or anything like that. You don't want to have the audio just be really difficult to listen to because it's so disturbing. The audio quality is horrible, or it's too loud in certain spots, or it's just peaking too much, or there's a lot of background noise. There's dogs barking in the background. There's the wind. There's a lot of things happening, or maybe your mouth is too close to the microphone and it's just making a really bad noise. So I've been podcasting for 18 years. And when I first started, I had a lot of audio quality issues in my podcast because this is, we're thinking 2004. So of course, I didn't have everything I needed to make the best studio quality podcast. I used what I had available to me. And throughout the years, I had several growth spurts in my business, and I was able to level up and purchase new items, invest in things that I needed for my show, like a pop filter, invest in a good Shure SM58 microphone, get a microphone stand for one. A lot of things that were very helpful and that helped me to improve the quality of my podcast, in addition to learning how to use audio editing software so that I could improve the quality in post-production after I've already recorded. So those are things that you'll need to maybe hire a team or have someone help you figure out what needs to be done. But an audit is going to show you and pinpoint the exact areas that you can improve your podcast. So definitely look at your quality of your audio and look at your equipment check as well. Just do an equipment check and see, am I using a good microphone? Ask yourself that question. Do I have good audio editing software? Am I able to use this software? And do I feel comfortable using it? You'll also want to make sure that when you're running your audit or hiring someone to run your audit, make sure that they look for legal compliance. So you want to make sure that the things you're doing on your podcast are legal and that you're using music that's okay to use on your show. So you need to be using royalty-free, copyright-free, royalty-free music that you most likely will need to spend or invest a certain amount of money to make sure that you're doing things the right way on your show and you're not just grabbing music to place on your podcast without the proper permissions to use that music. You also will want to make sure that if you have guests on your show, that you're interviewing people, make sure that there are agreements in place before they show up so that there is a common understanding about what your expectations are for them on the show. And that way you won't have to worry after the fact that they're claiming that they didn't approve of the audio recording, therefore you are infringing on their rights and then they're demanding you take down their audio. So it's best that you get some form of agreement in writing and having some legal compliance in that area with any guest that you have on your show. But again, any type of audios, video clips, any type of multimedia that you're using, even the media that you use on your show notes, say it's a blog post you're creating to accompany your podcast, you have to make sure that your images are royalty free and that you're allowed to use them. And that your podcast cover art is something that either you've created and you know that it's your creation and it's okay to use, or something that you hired someone to create for you that is using royalty-free images, or better yet, using your own image, your own picture, or something that you came up with that's not just some clip art or stock photo that you took from somewhere and then are using that for your podcast cover art. So just making sure you cover your bases all the way around on your show to make sure that you're covered. You want to always go back to tweaking your goals. Make sure that your goals are set. What are you trying to accomplish with your podcast? And then again, just to reiterate that first point that I was making, make sure that your content is aligned with that. Anybody that you bring on to interview, that it's aligned with your overall goal and mission for the show. So the entire scope of your show should drive your listeners to take certain actions and to allow them to understand what will happen next. So as they're listening, they know there's a common theme. They know that there's not going to be any major surprises. They know exactly what your podcast is about. And you just want to make sure that the quality of your content is top notch, that you're not rambling, that you're not wasting a lot of time. There are listeners that come to hear you because they feel like what you have to give is valuable, but they don't want to hear you rambling. They want to hear you say what you have to say so they can move on with their day. We're very busy people. And whenever you get someone's attention and they're listening to your show, take advantage of those few minutes that you have with them to really make the best of your audio content. When I do an audit, I also look at SEO, and I want to make sure that your podcast is optimized for search engines. And that means anything from the title of your show to the description of your show or your elevator pitch, that there's some SEO juice in there. We also want to look at your show notes. You want to be adding some SEO in that and keywords. And if you have a blog post that you place your show notes on. We want to make sure that your blog post has the proper headings and subheadings with the keywords that we want for that episode integrated throughout the show notes. So I'm looking at SEO and optimizing your show all throughout. Going back to audience engagement for a moment, like I said, there's different ways to measure the success of your show, and what's successful to you on your podcast may not be success for me. So it's different for every podcaster. So determine what you are trying to accomplish on your show, and then you need to communicate that to your podcast auditor. The person who is auditing your show, let them know, this is what I'm trying to do with my show. This is my goals for the show. And that way, when they're done with their assessment or they're about to start working on your audit, they have this in mind that this is what your goal is, okay? So for some, one measure of assessment is the community that you're able to build around your podcast. Now, not everybody has this as a goal. It's not a goal for me on all of my shows. I'm currently running 3 shows, and I don't have it as a goal to create community around all of them. For me, my goal is to offer the information and to encourage and inspire. But I do have one podcast that I'm hoping to create some form of virtual community, and I haven't yet decided how I'm going to go about doing that. But when I'm ready for that, I think it will all come together, because the podcast is a key part of what I will use to gel together these group of women who want this type of information I'm providing on the show. And so when you are creating your podcast, you might want to think about how you want to use your show to create community and therefore help to grow your show more effectively. And lastly, we need to grow. As podcasters, we're all growing. Every time we create a new show, it's an opportunity to learn something new or to hone certain skills that we didn't have before. So you may be getting used to the idea of storytelling or becoming a public speaker. This could be a first step in that direction for you. And there may be some technical aspects to podcasting that may feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but that you will become more familiar with, more comfortable with over the years. So don't give up on podcasting. You know, it's difficult in the beginning, but it gets easier and easier. And your podcast auditor can help you to pinpoint areas in your show that could use some assistance and some help, or maybe highlight some areas that might need some improvement, but also be able to show you the things that you're doing just right on your show. So don't be afraid to get an audit, because it could really boost your morale and show you that you're doing really well with your podcast. So I want to invite you to go ahead and get a podcast audit. I'd be happy to offer one for you. I am taking clients right now for podcast audits. So I'm going to leave my link so that you can see where to get that audit. And it's going to include all the things that I talked about on this video, in addition to you're receiving an action plan for your content so that you know what to do with future content ideas that you might have. And so we'll have that action plan available for you in a PDF format, in addition to a personalized checklist, action steps just for you and your show. It's not a generic action step PDF. This is for you. And you get that plus an optional Zoom call, which is worth $150. It's included for free in the podcast audit. You'll get all this within 7 days of your purchase. So I would love to have you come on over and click on the link below to get your podcast audits started. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to help you with your podcast, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.